And I can tell you from experience, while accumulating a lot of wealth, and I had like all these fancy cars, and I had a great house, and I even had a lovely family that I adore, that you realize there's nothing at the top. And so I was grinding, working 20 hours a day sometimes to try to get it all done, for months on end, no hyperbole. It was, it left me empty, and I realized there's nothing at the top.
Did it.
Right? No. What do you do when you're at the top?
Yeah.
Then you're just, you're around a circle of billionaires who all have double lives because they're miserable.
Yeah.
I got a really grotesque picture of life at the top.
Yeah.
And it scared me a little bit, and it wore me down. And I realized there was something so vacuous about it, and so empty and so temporal. And
Alan Ritchson is best known for playing Jack Reacher, the unstoppable, unbreakable force of nature at the center of Amazon's hit action thriller series. But underneath that persona is a story most people never see coming. A story of faith, of collapse, of a supernatural encounter that defies easy explanation. And a testimony of how a man who had everything came to find the only thing that actually mattered.
I went up in my attic. I had a big house with second story that I turned into movie sets.
Right.
And I went up in this movie set that I'd shot in. It was still such a weird thing to think about. But and I don't know why I went up there. It felt like the only place to do this, the best place to do this. I don't know. And I strung a green extension cord around some rafters in my set. That's like there's no roof. It's fly walls and stuff. And I hung myself. And
you hung yourself?
Yeah. And it's still hard to think about the fact that like I would do something like that to myself, especially with kids. But I now understand what it's like when people are like, I don't understand why they would kill themselves. And I'm like, I can tell you from experience, they thought they were giving the world a gift. That is the saddest lie that we could tell ourselves. But I thought that I was doing my family and my community a favor because I was such a mess mentally. Nobody ever tells you that like when you get to the top, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's just more of that. If you want it, I had ground and scraped and fought to make movies and to make the things that I wanted to make and to sell books and sell scripts. And I was doing all those things. And then I get there and I'm like a broken shell of myself with this relationship that threatened to sort of like truly like wreck my life. And I had done nothing to deserve that. A business partner who I had done everything right for, I had, honored faithfully all our contracts, like was doing a great job making a successful business for us.
You were honest.
Very honest. And multiple audits by some of the biggest auditing firms to prove that, because there were like false allegations when there was retribution for me deciding to walk away. But I was confronted with a business partner who gave me an ultimatum, well into our business dealings together. Like if I didn't provide this quid pro quo relationship thing, that she was going to destroy my reputation and our businesses, because she didn't care. She had so much money anyway. This person looked me in the eye and said, if you don't come up to my hotel room right now and give me what I want, I'm going to call TMZ and tell them that you sexually assaulted me, tried to rape me. And by the time you clear it up, everybody will already think that you're that, like it won't matter. The damage will be done. And I'm like, what is life? Like what, I'm so backwards.
What Ritchson is describing here is a man pushed past the edge. In other interviews, he's opened up about how the relentless grind of that season, the pressure, the betrayal, the impossible workload, drove him into manic states, mentally and emotionally shattered. And that context matters, because some will hear what comes next and reach for the clinical explanation. They'll say exhaustion explains it, oxygen deprivation explains it, that a broken mind sees what it needs to see. But consider this: if God does move in the world, maybe he always leaves fingerprints. Maybe the miracle and the mechanism aren't mutually exclusive. What happened next is something Ritchson has carried with him ever since.
Right, you thought everything that was going to make you happy didn't.
Yes.
Everything you wanted to do, you
Yes.
were doing, but you still weren't happy.
But I was, but I'm a victim. I'm a product, I should say, of these systems that we all survive in, which is, this sort of capitalist-driven, corporatocracy kind of driven way of merchandising and commercializing every thought and fear and moment that we have in our lives, and never giving us a chance to slow down. And when I was able to, I was on my way out, and I saw my kids, and I saw them grown up, and
you really saw that.
Yes, I did, and I saw them asking me, just like a mature grown adult would say something very calmly without emotion, like, please don't do this. It was such a startling image that them saying, we need you, that I climbed up out of that. I pulled myself up, and I got out of that. And
was it hard to get out of that?
I mean, thank God I work out, because if I didn't,
you wouldn't have
the strength to do it, but I did. And so I got up there, and
did you just get hysterical after that?
Yeah.
Just like kind of lost your mind for a second?
Yeah. Like, this is where I am? What is wrong? And this is after a good year. This is after making tons of money. This is after accomplishing all the goals. How can that be? Like, that's not something we talk about. That there's nothing there at the top. That that life isn't about, Jim Carrey said it before. I hope everybody gets what they want and gets the riches that their hearts desire, so they realize that that's not what life is all about. That's not what will make you happy. Some people have discovered that truth, and so you talk about what inspired me to start talking about something more meaningful on my channel. Jesus longs to be restored to that position of glory that he deserves with the Father in heaven. And he died for us, as we know. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says, for our sake he made him to be sin who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Died unjustly, undeservedly so, for our sake. The cost of God moving towards us. When we see what is required of us, we remove the saccharine dream of what it means to be a Christian, that we can sort of coast through knowing that this work has been done and nothing else is required of us, because we're not saved by work. We're not saved by our deeds. We're saved simply by the faith that we have in the work that Christ did. It's what he did for us. That's what saves us. That's what allows us to re-enter the substitution that takes place. Christ for us, this confounding substitution that takes place, because we know deep down he didn't deserve it and we do. What are we called to, though? Spurgeon said it best. We must replace the dreaming with places of real service. Places of real service to God. And
that's a man changed at the root, not polished, not performing. And the story doesn't end there. In the moments that follow, Ritchson goes even deeper into what that night actually cost him, what it gave him, and why he refuses to stay silent about any of it. He is not the celebrity you expect to be saying these things, and that's exactly what makes it so hard to dismiss.
You've been really open about your bipolar diagnosis. You've been really open about your faith in an industry that doesn't always value that. You were really open. I've really found this fascinating because I've heard no one talk about this, about that, hey, when you're build, and we make jokes about how you're built, but like when your build and your physique is your job, when you have to maintain a certain build and physique for your work, what that does to your health, what that might do to your mind and all that kind of stuff. Why does it give you to be so open about this? Because there is openness in the arts around this stuff, but they're not typically from, this is not great for me to say. I feel like it doesn't typically come from people in action movies and action shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't fit the profile, right?
Of someone who's going to be vulnerable and open.
Like, yeah. Big dude. I've been successful as far as, financially speaking for many years. This career's been very good to me.
Yeah.
You don't think of somebody that is, sort of guy trapped in a leading man physique with a lot of money, like wanting to kill themselves, know?
Yeah.
And so because it doesn't fit and because it's not a narrative I expected, I certainly cannot be alone in the fact that many of us experience depressive episodes that can steal from us, and those that can come in degrees. How our minds can rob us in great and small ways, and sometimes there's a finality to that is so tragic. It would be a real crime. It would be a travesty if I kept my experience a secret. So, as much as I would love to ignore the fact that I'm a suicide survivor, and it's still very hard to talk about, I tried to take my life by hanging in my mid-30s, and if I didn't share what I've learned, I feel like my life would be meaningless.
If you didn't share with other people, if you weren't able to be open and honest so that people understand that they too are not alone for going through this. That depression and suicidal ideation and suicidal actions don't have a profile.
Right.
You know what I mean? They don't only happen to certain kinds of people.
Yeah. Depression doesn't just like it doesn't handpick like the right person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the person that you'd expect.
Yeah.
Like I didn't. I've always been a very happy-go-lucky guy.
Yeah.
I didn't think that it would happen to me. In fact, I didn't understand it to the point that if somebody told me before my experience with it, if somebody told me that they were depressed, in my head, I'm like, well, just get off your ass and go work out,
go for a hike, call a friend,
dude. If you just work out, I feel great. You get a runner's high, and also if you really have it, then you just take medication. Just go do something. And once you experience the grip, the talons that it can sink into you. You realize how sinister this thing is and how out of control the biology can really be for somebody who's in the midst of it. The confounding expression that it can have with suicidal ideation, where for me at least, and I think this is true for many people that I've spoken to, that you can feel like suicide would be a real gift to those you love because that you would no longer be a burden to them. Yeah. That is something I hope my openness and honesty about the condition and my survival, being on the other side of it and having a lot more clarity and, having, a little more logic and reason happening in the chemistry can prevent people from doing something before they're arriving at the place. They arrive at the place that I've been. So, I went from this place of utter exhaustion, of forcing long-term mania in order to generate the kind of work demands that I was accepting, that I was walking into. I took on too much. I was running a film fund. I was writing books and manuscripts for people as a ghostwriter. I was selling scripts. As a member of the WGA, I was directing films. I was producing. I was starring in a TV show. It was too much, and my idea of success at the time was what many of us are told: you work hard, you make good choices, and you'll see success, which will come in the form of lots of financial gain and status in your community, and maybe if you're real lucky, you can help other people along the way. And that's sort of like the mantra that most of us sort of try to abide by. It sounds really good. Yeah. And I can tell you from experience, while accumulating a lot of wealth, and I had like all these fancy cars, and I had a great house, and I even had a lovely family that I adore, that you realize there's nothing at the top. And so I was grinding, working 20 hours a day sometimes to try to get it all done, for months on end, no hyperbole. It was, it left me empty, and I realized there's nothing at the top.
There's no getting to the summit and, okay, I did it.
Right. No, what do you do when you're at the top? And then you're just, you're around a circle of billionaires who all have double lives because they're miserable.
Yeah.
I got a really grotesque picture of life at the top.
Yeah.
And it scared me a little bit, and it wore me down. And I realized there was something so vacuous about it, and so empty and so temporal. And I've since discovered, I think why we're here is, I do have faith. I believe in God. Mm-hmm. I believe that we're made to become an act of worship for our Creator, to live our lives in a way that just everything we do is an act of worship, celebrating the life that we've been given, and to celebrate each other, and to find ways to lift each other up, and just, make each world that we run into a brighter one. It's very simple, and it's very fulfilling, and I'm not very good at it.
Everything we do, an act of worship. It's a simple idea. And in Ritchson's case, it was forged in one of the darkest places a human being can find themselves. What emerged from that darkness wasn't a cleaner version of the same Hollywood story. It was something rarer, a voice that carries genuine weight precisely because it cost him something real to find it.